It's a brand new week, but it is the final show for a little while, at least of this kind. You're going to get some pre-records, you're going to get some news dropped over the next fortnight, and I'm sure I'll be there to react to it in certain ways, but not in the usual way. So, for one final time for the next couple of weeks, this is today's Arsenal news show. No, it's not. It's the Arsenal transfer show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for tuning in and joining me. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing good. And I hope indeed that you're having a fantastic week. And I hope your weekend was strong. That you managed to enjoy yourselves, take yourself away from football, relax, interest yourselves in other things, of course, always important to do. Good morning to those joining us in the chat box live. Good morning to Matt and Jamil. We've got Brian and Tom. We've got Rich, Rancid. We've got Rowan and Norris. We've got Tom and Black Shine and Hooded Gooner and Southport Gooner. We've got Spearmint and Mark and Christopher and Paul, Glenn, Vivian, Claire. We've got Dave and Steve, Brad, Stephen, Pablo, Owen in the chat box as well. Back to back TGT Regs in the chat box this morning. Good to see you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciated and humbling. Do make sure you drop a like on the video for what is obviously the last time I'm really going to be pushing you to do so for a little while. Yeah, let's jump straight into things and not waste any time because I'm going to be around for the next 27 minutes because then I've got to go off to the airport and get a flight. So thank you so much for the kind words. I can see plenty coming in already. So thanks for that. Really do appreciate it. But let's start with Kepa, Arsenal's new keeper, who is expected to have completion over this deal imminently. And the expectation is hopefully that this can be kind of confirmed this week. Would be great. Obviously not guaranteed, but it would be great if Arsenal could confirm this deal as soon as feasibly possible. And obviously a confirmation this week would obviously be very, very welcome indeed. And so, yeah, looking forward to finally Arsenal getting hold of a Chelsea player. I mean, Havertz as well, of course, Jorginho, you could argue as well, but a Chelsea player that has genuinely really a lot of benefits to this deal. 5 million quid. Of course, his wages are dropping as well. So all the positive signs, of course, for this deal and for Arsenal to complete a very, very good number 2 keeper called Kepa. Right, let's move forwards to a deal that I don't think many people are too enthralled with, to be honest, and that's Leroy Sane. A lot of clubs have made their offers for Leroy Sane, and media in Turkey, who, of course, have been covering a lot of the interest from the likes of Fenerbahce and Galatasaray, who are said to have also made offers for the German international. They're claiming, of course, that Leroy Sane is potentially on, or rather expecting an offer from Arsenal today, Monday, the 9th of June. There is an expectation on their side that Arsenal are going to make an offer for the player. And certainly that would be an opportunity that Arsenal see to add a player of international level, but of course doesn't add a transfer fee associated with it whatsoever. So yeah, it's a strange one. I only want to see this deal done as kind of like a cherry on top of the cake. It wouldn't really move necessarily too much of my feelings around kind of the forward line, and I'd still feel that we'd need somebody else to come into the squad as well on top of Benjamin Sesko and of course others that we also need. So if Arsenal are to sign Sane, then I hope it's part of a number of additions in the forward line. David Ornstein obviously saying that Arsenal want 3 forwards. Hopefully that's a Sesko, a wide player, and Sane, if that's to be the case. But it does need to be in addition to other players, I think, as well. More links, though, speaking of kind of wide players, have emerged regarding Mohammed Kudus and the idea that Arsenal might see Kudus as a potential opportunity. Now, claims were that obviously West Ham have a release clause of around £85 million, but there were suggestions that Arsenal would instead want to negotiate a fee between 55 and 60 million euros. That's according to Sebastian Vidal, a what looks to be a French journalist, potentially, who's claimed this story for Foot Mercato, obviously a French outlet, and claiming that Arsenal would hope to do business for significantly less than that release clause. But Kudus didn't have the best of seasons last year, but was very strong, obviously, before that. But West Ham in general didn't have a very good season last year, and perhaps he was associated with that, of course, as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this turns out to be the case, and this turns out to be the player that Arsenal move for in a wide position. But yeah, it's one to keep an eye on more, I think, than to be enthralled or excited about. Moving into the more concrete stuff, Martin Zubimendi scoring last night for Spain as they lost on penalties to Portugal in the Nations League final. It was an entertaining game, certainly, and so it kind of whetted the appetite again, I think, for football fans for the game after having been deprived of it since the Champions League final. But obviously, Arsenal are going to be out of action for quite some time. Arsenal's first game of pre-season is on July 21st, 23rd, July 23rd against AC Milan in Singapore. So, but Zubimendi is expected to be, of course, part of that team that travels to Asia with Arsenal. I know there's been a lot of noise and I guess kind of media swirling chaotic soup around this deal, still trying to kind of, well, put off this idea of that Zubimendi's not a done deal. It's, to my knowledge, progressed so far that it would take like the U-turn of all U-turns for this to not happen. A lot of the deal has been done. A lot of the paperwork has been completed. It's just a case of waiting now for the medical. And of course, both clubs would prefer this deal to be done in July rather than June, which is what we understand to be the major delay and why this is not a deal that will be confirmed. But it's enabled kind of this swill of noise of Madrid, and that's not gone away. We've had this before. We've had the Madrid noise for the last couple of months, and nothing has changed. So a number of outlets, of course, a number of media intermediaries coming out yesterday and making their claims. I think Fabrizio Romano speaking on one of his streams saying it's all but confirmed that he's moving to Arsenal. So I think people need to chill a little bit with Zubi, who, by the way, was again absolutely brilliant. He scored in the game. We're in the right place, right time. It's not really his style to do what he did, to be kind of late into the box and be there to finish off an opportunity. But he had another excellent game for Spain, following on from his excellent game against France the other day as well. Patrick, what's the advantage of waiting until July? It's accounting. It's accounting reasons as to why, UEFA financial fair play, Premier League profit and sustainability. There are benefits of these deals going through for different clubs in July rather than June, so they show up on different books, basically. But the headline act of the week is no prizes for guessing who, but Benjamin Sesko. This is the week where we are expecting the major movement on this deal. Certainly, all the reports yesterday were suggesting that this is the week that we were expecting to have kind of that major moment where Arsenal have that bid or either rejected or pushed back, or hopefully, as we hope to intend to have, accepted, and that Arsenal can start putting the final touches on their number one striker target for this summer, Benjamin Sesko, who is expected to be, well, there's a lot of expectation around this move, now, and I think Florian Pletterberg was speaking on Sky yesterday saying, effectively on the lines of, who'd be shocked if this deal now doesn't really go through, and that he's just, he is expecting this deal to happen. Just trying to find here the exact quote, but effectively it is along the lines of, he is expecting him to be an Arsenal player this summer, which is, of course, not a surprise, I don't think, at this point. We know he's been the number one. We know he's the player that they've wanted, that we know he's the player that they preferred. And now it seems that Arsenal are moving to secure this deal, which is obviously very, very good indeed. Certainly the player that I've wanted, certainly the player that a lot of you have wanted as well. So let's wait and see what type of impact he will have when the deal gets done. Right, let's go to part two for the last time for a little while, and your questions and more right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show, where, of course, we'll be jumping into the chat box and tackling some of your questions, some of your thoughts and feelings and moments from anything, really, that you want to throw into the chat. So now is the time to do so. Patrick says, any news on Partey? No breakthrough so far in talks over a brand new contract as of yet. But those talks are continuing. There were Ryan Taylor from the Mirror suggested that indeed that Arsenal had made an offer around 10 days ago, but still no breakthrough on his future. Clint says, I'm genuinely excited for the Sesko signing. Me too. And I think everybody else should be also. Callum says, so would you expect Sesko to be done by the reopening of the window? Expect is a big word. Obviously, we're seeing this stuff with Zubimendi in July. It might be that Arsenal agree a deal in principle, and again, that deal gets kind of delayed and kind of ticks over until July as well. So it's impossible to say that we expect it to be done because of this whole July accounting scenario. Bakar Martinelli says, good morning, Tom. David Ornstein is adamant that we want 3 attackers. So what combo do you think that we are targeting? 2 strikers and a winger, 1 striker and 2 wingers. I think almost certainly it'll be a centre forward and 2 wide players. As we've talked a lot on the channel about before, that the idea of Arsenal adding 2 centre forwards during this window is just not really a realistic expectation. Once you've signed Sesko, the idea that another striker would be open to coming to Arsenal, having already seen Sesko signed and Havertz already there, it's very unlikely indeed. Cameron says, would you rather Barcola for 55 or Rodrigo for 85? Rodrigo. Franklin says, Tom, do you believe that we're still in for Gyökeres and that we have definitely made our decision? I mean, they'll still be aware of that scenario if something goes wrong on the Sesko deal, but the Sesko deal is the number 1 option. Claire says, why can't they put a contract start date as July 1st and then it can be announced? Because registration, when you announce a player, that's when they're registered. So that's when it's completed. That's when the deal is done. So that it's still very much open at that until that point. Charlie says, people complaining about Kepa are just over the top. He's Prem proven, Champions League proven, 5 million is an absolute bargain. He's been a backup. If we're to spend 35 million on a backup, people would go mad. I don't really get kind of any of the complaints anyone has about Kepa. I mean, he finished 6th in the Premier League table of clean sheets last season, even though he missed 5 games and easily could have risen to 3rd or 4th in that list had he have played in any of those 5 games. Had a very solid season for Bournemouth. Wasn't really pinpointed out for any major mistakes. I think people associate a lot of his errors, of course, with his time at the start of his life at Chelsea. It just doesn't really make any sense, I don't think. But yeah, it's just a very solid number 2. You're not going to get a better backup goalkeeper for 5 odd million quid, and for the wage cut that he's taking, it's just fine. All I'd like is for somebody, if they have got complaints, is to come up with a better solution than him and tell me what that is, rather than just spewing criticism into the ether. The Saxon says, I doubt we'll see any action until the window reopens. Samuel says, don't forget that Marino also scored in the first penalty of the shootout. This is the second time I've seen him take the first penalty in a shootout, showing his seniority in the Spanish national team. Yes, very well brought up. Thank you for reminding me. Tyson says, honestly, I think the Sane deal is a smart one. If he comes along with a left-sided winger and a striker, we need to raise the quality of the bench and have threat when teams are tired. As I said before, I'm fine with it as long as he's not the wide player. As long as he's not the wide player that we sign, I'm absolutely fine with that. As long as he's an additional wide player, that's key. Stephen's done the cop-out. I expect the scouts to find a solution. Not my job to provide a player. Well, I'm afraid, Stephen, it is. If you're going to come along and start criticising the work of the club, I want solutions, mate, not problems. I lack a lot of respect for if there's no solution given when you're just raising problems. It's a cop-out answer. Amaral Gunner says, Tom, the only question I have on Kepa is why didn't Bournemouth sign him if he was a number 1? It's a fair question to ask, but he's 30 years of age. They might have wanted to go down a different route instead and find a more long-term option, whereas Arsenal are just looking for a number 2. And so for that reason, they've got a lot more pull. If Bournemouth wanted to go down the route of adding a more long-term number 1, then it's as simple as that. I don't think it's easy to say, Arsenal came in, so Bournemouth wouldn't have had a chance, because Kepa, for a first place spot, may have been more keen on a move to Bournemouth instead, but who knows? I guess we will hear more. But there's also, David Ornstein did report, of course, he's willing to fight for that place. So there's arguments that Kepa's eyeing trying to make it into the starting 11 at Arsenal, not just be a number 2. Franklin says, are we in the Club World Cup? No, we're not. Callum says, I agree. Sane should only be an addition to the business that we are already doing if we are to sign him. Oslo says, Marino is class and the perfect squad player. A level raiser as well for the bench. Absolutely. Patrick says, I really liked Nico Williams last night. We don't seem to have any links, though, anymore. He would be great for us. I think his wages are being the biggest stumbling block for Arsenal and any club interested. It's just such a high wage. Like the numbers being talked about are mad, and now Athletic apparently are looking at trying to even renew his contract, which would potentially even improve his wages, certainly up the release clause as well. So it becomes very difficult, I think, that deal. Biko says, Tom, how is it some creators slate the Sesko deal and also slate the club for not signing Isak, who had scored 9 goals and cost the same fee? We no longer supporters, we're self-elected critics. I think you know the answer to your own question. Some people just like to moan. Some people, it's a brand almost. I think it becomes a brand for people to just moan about the club. It's what listeners expect. When they come along, they expect you to be critical. That's why they tune in. It's why I love being in a position where I can just say what I actually think, and I can just be critical when I want to be critical, and I can be praising when I want to praise. We can sit here and say that the 2024 windows were absolute failures. We can sit here and say that if indeed we have windows like them again, it is a massive indictment of the recruiting issues at Arsenal. And equally, if Arsenal have a window and are early in their business like they were in 2023 and 2022, and obviously they've had a big window. But I do think there's an element, Biko, that certain channels you go along and you go along there because you want to hear negativity, you want to hear criticism, and I think that they know that. I think that's a key point. And Cameron says, I've seen a couple of people say that we need an overlapping left back if we get Rodrigo. Are there any obvious targets? I don't think Arsenal need an overlapping left back. I think Lewis Skelly, when he plays on that left-hand side, can invert, but he does very, very well kind of pushing along and supporting the left winger as well, not just inverting. So I don't think we necessarily need an overlapping left back for Rodrigo. Khan says, hi, Tom. Do we know which wide forward and winger we have spoken with the most? It seems Sesko is the focus. I think that's probably a fair way of looking at it right now. It seems that the Sesko is kind of taking up the bulk of the focus, but Andrea Berta is talking to a lot of different intermediaries and agents and clubs, and there's a lot of discussions going on. And it says, Tom, you do know we're a year behind in transfer targets. What's your take on it as these signings were to be done last year? What do you mean, Anthony? I don't really know what you mean. Can you be a little bit clearer? Callum says, just wanted to say I really appreciate all the work we do on both the platform and others like X as well. Don't get a chance to comment on these live as I'm always working. Well, thank you, Callum. That's very kind of you indeed. And says, any info on how far we are negotiating Saka's new contract? It's going positively, is all I know on that front. It's not one that I'm losing sleep over, would probably be a fair way of putting it. Robert says, you'll moan when you get to 40. Have a great holiday. It's an age thing, says Robert. Maybe it's an age thing. Hoodie Goodness says, Tom, enjoy the deserved break. Hope you and the wife enjoy it. Thank you, mate. It's very kind of you indeed. Ashley says, Kai, Partey, Nelly is the most crucial players for the first half of the season. They provide Sesko, Zubi. I've done the opposite way around. Sesko and Zubi and the left wing and the necessary adaptation to London life. Premier League Arteta style, and they can play 60 minutes and, of course, be substitutes and play one game a week. Yeah, I mean, the depth is what's going to give us the opportunity to rotate and keep players a lot fresher. That, of course, I think is going to be key as well. Second says, if you accept that you're not a scout and it isn't your job to find a solution, why do you profusely refuse when the pros whose job it is to offer a solution? It's also a really good point. And that's why I always think it's such a hypocritical thing to say, saying it's not my job. I'm not the scout. I'm not the expert. I'm not bringing these players. And yet, why do you so strongly have an opinion that what the scouts therefore are doing the wrong thing? If you're so certain and have such a strong opinion that what they're doing is wrong, and yet when asked to give who you think should be the right option, because clearly you're the expert, and this is a general response to anyone who has that cop-out response of, I'm not a scout, I'm not at the club, I don't work there, I don't have the solutions. If you don't have the solutions, then maybe you shouldn't be raising the problems. That's what I think. Personally, I think if you want to be critical, then you got to come up with the solutions. Like in January, absolute failure of a window. I did not want to see Jason Ato being made as Arsenal's sporting director. I wanted Arsenal to go out and bring in, an experienced head or someone who's got some really good kind of track records in their respective clubs. And we talked about Thomas Rosicky. We talked about Luis Campos, of course, at PSG. But Andrea Berta was somebody not even on the radar, but was very, very impressed indeed. But we came up with solutions. We gave options, because if you're going to be critical, and if you can say these people aren't good enough, you better be ready to have an example of who you think is good enough. That's for sure. Don't be an armchair expert, says Oslo. Indeed. Charlie says, who is going on loan next season? Will Vieira go back on loan? I really hope not. I hope that Arsenal find a solution to Vieira and Lokonga and Nelson that is a permanent exit from the club. That's what we ultimately need to find the answer to. We need to find permanent solutions for these players and bring in money. I actually released a piece this morning, which you can go and read on the football.london website, which goes through all of the players that I think could leave this summer from the first team squad and kind of the budgets that I would expect, kind of the fees that I would expect for these types of players and some explanations behind why. So if you want to go and give that a read after, of course, you've listened to this show, I'll leave a link to that article in today's video description. But yeah, go and give it a check out. Go give it a read. I'll put it in the chat box now for you all as well. So if you want to give it a read, you can. Right, let's scroll on. We've got 5 more minutes or so to get some more of your questions. Cameron says, do you think that we'll need legs in midfield to relieve the minutes of Zubi and Rice? Yeah, that's why I think, obviously, the club are in negotiations over a deal for Partey. If that's unsuccessful, they will need to go and find another player. They will need to find another midfielder, if indeed they don't do that. And it says, Tom, these signings like Sesko, Garcia, do you mean like the goal? I assume that's the goalkeeper. Zubimendi and Nico Williams and Hayter was supposed to be done last summer, and that's what was the situation. That's what the top journalists. I mean, yeah. I mean, and the fact that the guy that was in charge of that recruiting window is not here anymore, and the guy that was in charge in the failed January window is not here anymore. I think Arsenal, in the end, Edu's decision has perhaps been something of a blessing, because we've been able to go and get a very experienced head in Andrea Berta. And it already appears, of course, that we are doing that business very early in this window. So we absolutely needed a centre forward last summer. We didn't do it. We needed to improve the left-hand side. We did that. But sadly lost both of the players that we signed in that window to injury. So, yeah, it is happening this summer. But the person who was in charge of recruitment last summer is not here anymore. So we don't really need to have too much of a strong opinion around that, because we've made the decision and brought the man in who's different to do that job and to make sure that that doesn't happen 2 years running. Aike says, do we believe Arteta will not rely on the same players? Tierney had been fit for a good while before he was reluctantly played, even when we were 4 goals up against PSV, but Laurier Deji was a no-show. I think that the players, of course, that are going to come in the summer will, of course, get played, especially the ones that we invest in. I see some people suggesting that, we're signing Sesko just so that Havertz can stay as a centre forward. If we sign a 70-odd million centre forward, they're going to play. They're going to play. I think it's absolute mad conspiracy theorism that suggests that we're signing Sesko just so Havertz can continue playing. Havertz deserves to play. Havertz has been a great player for us since coming in, but we need better, and Sesko is being brought in to hopefully be better, but he's still going to have plenty to contribute as well. Baron says, hi, Tom, will you be doing a show focusing on Sesko with a journalist in Germany for more context and supporters? We'll probably do that after I've returned from Canada. Of course, I'm returning before the end of this month, and we are expecting the bulk of Arsenal's business to happen in the early part of July. So we'll be there to cover plenty of those signings if they haven't happened already. With some experts on the channel, of course. Charlie says, if and when Liverpool get Wirtz, is that a bigger statement signing if Arsenal get Rodrigo? Yeah, almost certainly. It would cost, well over £100 million to get that deal done. Rodrigo would be a big, big deal for Arsenal to do, but Wirtz is considered to be probably the best young attacking midfield player on the planet for his position and his age bracket, other than Jude Bellingham, I guess. So, yeah, certainly I think Wirtz would be the marquee signing of the summer of any club that could do that, mainly because of the price tag associated with it as well. Ezra says Arsenal should sign Semenyo instead of Rodrigo. I don't see Real Madrid selling. I mean, they shouldn't sign him instead. They should potentially look at him if they can't sign Rodrigo, but it certainly should not be instead of Rodrigo. Charlie says Havertz can play in midfield too, and we have players who can play in multiple roles. If we need to rest Rice, we can play Skelly Havertz in midfield as well, but I agree another midfielder is definitely needed. Punfi says Musiala is definitely better than Wirtz. I mean, I think both of them are excellent. I don't think it's a case of like definitely better. I think they are both very, very, very good players, and both deserve a lot of credit. I mean, last season, Wirtz got 10 goals and 12 assists. Musiala got 12 goals and 2 assists. And he played only 6 less games in the Bundesliga than Wirtz. So in the UEFA Champions League, Wirtz got 6 goals. Musiala got 3. In the Cup, he didn't score, just got 1 assist, but Musiala did get 3 goals there. But when, of course, Bayer Leverkusen have had a mad season, really. So I don't think it's a case of he's definitely better or one is definitely better than the other. I think they're both excellent players who have put up really good numbers. And if anything, last season, Wirtz had the better season of the two players in the end. I mean, Musiala had 18 goals and 8 assists. Florian Wirtz had 16 goals and 15 assists. So 31 goal contributions to Musiala's 26. So, yeah, I don't think it's a case of one is definitely better than the other. Musiala is also playing for the more dominant side as well in Bayern. So, but I wouldn't have an issue with saying that Musiala is slightly better than him, but I don't think it's a case of definitely one over the other. Sukaturando says, we really need to turn off everything Arsenal for a few weeks. All this fretting. I mean, if you feel that you need to do that, I really appreciate your listenership as always. You're going to have a couple of shows dropping in the next 2 days that have been pre-recorded with some fantastic guests as well, talking more broadly about transfers. We've got an excellent episode with somebody who breaks a lot of the news around transfers and stories, and we have a good long chat about what it's like to break transfers, talk about transfers, to get sources, to speak to intermediaries, to hear about things and be beaten to the punch when you think you've got an exclusive. We've got some really good conversations there. So I look forward to releasing that. We've got another conversation which talks a little bit more broadly about just the covering of transfers, kind of on a content creation level, on breakdowns, on live chats, and just discussing things. So there's plenty to come, but I will indeed be taking a break. If anything major happens, you can expect a video being dropped, but it won't be edited. It won't be with all the crazy background. It might have a crazy background depending on where I am, but it won't have all the graphics and stuff other than the thumbnail, which I might, chuck together. So look out for those shows. There's one tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. There's one on Wednesday, 8 o'clock. They'll be uploaded to your feed as premieres. So they'll be live. There will be a chat box available for you to talk amongst yourselves while the show is going on, but I will be asleep. So behave yourselves. Stay safe, people. Enjoy the next couple of weeks, and I'll be back on the 25th of June, hopefully with a bit of a surprise as well, actually. The fingers will be crossed that I'll be delivering you quite a new environment, let's say, and something exciting is coming after those 2 weeks. So if you want to find out what that is, make sure you come back. I put a little post up on the post community feed the other day. I'll be very open and clear and transparent with you. There's definitely an anxiety about going away and leaving this channel for a little bit and taking a break. I think that's natural. I've been doing this show for 3 years straight, every day, other than, a few shows here and there that we've missed. Done it on birthdays, done it on wedding days, done it on holidays, pre-recorded shows for 2 weeks on a honeymoon. There's been shows this is the longest break we're taking. So it's natural to have a little bit of anxiety about this. But I appreciate all the kind words and messages that you've been sending in. Your support means a hell of a lot, and I know that you'll all be here when I come back. But all the updates, of course, they'll still be doing a bit of tweeting, I imagine, and posting on Blue Sky. So you can follow us over on there. And there's a couple of shows still to come. And of course, any big news that drops, I promise that I'll be giving you my thoughts and reaction to that in a little pre-recorded episode as well that will drop at the usual time of 8 a.m. if indeed there is one. So just check your feeds now and again. I'll probably tweet about it if I'm going to do it. Yeah, enjoy yourselves. Have a fantastic time. Take a break if you are indeed. And I will see you very soon. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.